Needs a manual switch. Oh well. Button broken. Good morning. A little grumpy today. I've just been, this always fucking happens. This happens every time. My intro's a little dramatic. That music, I feel like that intro music sort of writes a check that my streams can't catch. But anyway, it's very dramatic. But I've been reading the news and reading the analysis, and I'm just getting a little bit worked up over this whole thing because it's the same thing over and over again. It's why the left loses. I shouldn't be surprised yet again. Like people just, I understand. Like, okay, I'm working on a thing at the moment where it's like I understand people are upset. I understand that people are disappointed, and I understand, like there's a lot going on. Like, obviously it's quite an emotional thing. My last video that I, did quickly prior to the sort of referendum in Australia was asking people to vote yes. It's quite emotional. I feel quite strongly that it is the way forward. But the way that it was handled, the optics around it, the messaging around it, I see the same old traps and the same old bollocks, and then I find myself yet again having to defend the people who, there is nothing that winds me up more than people who have contempt for the electorate, or people who think that just because someone does, votes in a way that you don't like, or votes differently to you, or has a different idea to you, or may even have a more nuanced view than you because you're a fuckhead, that somehow that's like, and again, I've been in this fucking area for long enough now to know that, activists, single issue activists gonna activist, okay? Activism has a tendency, okay, let me walk back. activism, especially single issue activism, has an inherent, there's an attractiveness to people who are already intense, already probably a little, unhinged. I would argue that you have to be somewhat unhinged to be like a single issue activist in the first place. Okay. Because it's not dissimilar to, people who join cults are already predisposed to joining cults. It is a certain sort of psychological profile that also gets people sort of that attracts people to those extreme fringes or sort of blinkered visions of politics. It's the same thing, right? It's the exact, if you reduce it, not that I like to reduce things down to one thing because it's never one thing, but it is a factor, which is that I've worked in fucking campaigns forever, like having to deal with the lunatics, like some, politics, especially mainstream politics, is more about like which lunatic are you willing to defend, right? And I'll still, obviously, of course, defend, your single issue left-wing socialist activists, because, obviously their heart's in the right place. But, at the same time, I'll also defend, rural Australia and particularly rural Western Australia, because, you see these like urban fuckheads just making horrible statements about people when they don't work in Western Australia. They've never been to Western Australia. And if they have, they've been, hanging around fucking, the cities. They don't know anything about anything. And, their only exposure to anything remotely involving sort of, Aboriginal rights is turning up, to like student politics or, and, they haven't got any experience on the ground. They haven't actually talked to people. They haven't talked to anyone outside of this, and again, I'm not going to be one of those people that does sort of elites rhetoric. I mean, it's not that simple, right? But there is a thing, especially in political science and political, okay, let me just walk it back. It's almost like there is information available that gives you answers to things. Like, it's almost like just because you say a thing, it's the same thing with any issue, okay? Single issue activists are fucking idiots, okay? And I generally have a tendency to go, well, it's a democracy. Thank you. Noted. Your opinion is noted, but that's not how the world operates. The vast majority of people try to get everyone to coexist. Now, as I've said before, my position on The Voice is very clear, which is I think that people should have voted yes. It was the right thing to do. However, the demonisation of people who vote no is going to make people double down more. I keep saying this, and I'll tell you why. Because you don't know anything about fucking Western Australian politics. You don't know anything about Australian politics. You have not read a single book that analyses the Australian political culture. You don't know how things work. You're just sitting there putting on a t-shirt. Okay, you just, again, I would like to be an asshole and point out that Aboriginal Australians and the original creator of the Aboriginal flag have repeatedly requested that you don't change the colours, that you don't repurpose it, that you don't sell the Aboriginal flag for commercial purposes, all of these things. But, you're not a racist. For someone who may have a more complicated view of things or may actually live on the ground, okay, and that's what I'm going to talk about in Western Australia. I'm not defending the no vote as such. What I am saying is dialing it back and saying, what does the no vote tell us about the divide that exists in Western Australia? And I'm more inclined to listen to people who live in those communities where that divide is more stark. And I want to talk about why. Okay. Now, if you know what you're talking about and aren't just a lunatic, okay, who treats issues as content, which is, a lot of people, an awful lot of infographic activism happening at the moment, is that Australian referendums tend to not pass, okay? There's a lot of reasons for that. Some of it is structural, okay? Some of it is because of the fact that we are a federation. And, we've got a lot of Americans right now, and UK people who don't know what our system is, don't know how it operates. They project all their shit on it and think, it's all these people who are like, oh yeah, don't talk about America. You don't know how it works. Well, actually I do, because I'm qualified. And second of all, you haven't taken any time. Second of all, you can't help but fucking learn, because they won't shut the fuck up. And third, like, you don't know how our system works. You don't know the history. You don't know, like, that, how our system was designed, how it works. Now, has that system been designed having left out a whole cohort of fucking people? Yes. But it's not that simple. It just is not that simple. I'd love to see any fucking American try to change the fucking Constitution. I love how watching Americans defend the Second Amendment, like, or lament about the Second Amendment, or go, well, but oh yeah, okay, all right, yeah, it can't possibly be difficult. Oh yeah, we're allowed to have a gun and mass shootings, but there might be more to the story somewhere else when it comes to changing the Constitution, and we're hesitant about those sorts of things. Now, I don't know whether that sentence came out clearly. I'm still warming up, obviously. But it's like, Jesus Christ, okay, anyone who knows anything about how Australian politics works, so you've got this complex interaction between, now Americans might understand this a little better, okay, which is the federation. So we're federal, we're a federation, okay, which means that we've got 6 states and 2 territories, okay. The territories are part of the federal jurisdiction, but you've got 6 states, okay. Now, you might think that we're just one big, like, blob. I mean, in Americans' minds, Australia is just a big old blob of people wearing Akubra hats, wearing Uggs, and, putting shrimp on the Barbie. It turns out we're actually quite a complex, quite impressive, outside of some of these, like, issues, quite a complex system. Now, I would obviously also defend America in that regard. When people, I mean, it's fun to make fun of America because America's crazy, but the chaos in America is, like, a lot of the chaos in America was predicted by our founders, whatever that means. A lot of our system was designed to avoid some of these, like, these issues that America is now seeing. We are one of the most stable. Now, again, qualify. There's an asterisk there, okay? That's where we've got to rethink these things. I'm not saying they're a given. I'm saying that there's balances here. But you got to understand that, like, just structurally, okay, this system is designed that in a way that protects states' rights. States have the default power, okay. Now, you've got 6 states, 2 of which are the most populous, okay? So you've got New South Wales and Victoria. They are highly urbanised. Again, I'm not generalising. They've got the highest concentration of population. They are, a lot of them are coastal, okay? I mean, obviously every state is coastal, but I'm saying the highly dense urban, like, states, okay? But Western Australia, which is the most remote, okay, other than the Northern Territory, you've got Western Australia, South Australia, and the Northern Territory on the other side, which makes all the money from resources, farming, agriculture, all of that sort of stuff. Now, again, Queensland is sort of sits somewhere in the middle there in terms of, like, the population being spread out, and it's very complicated. Okay. Now, what you've got is a history. So this is why things don't just happen yesterday. Okay, it's not just, answer the question. Now, in this instance with the voice, it was actually quite simple for me, which was they asked. That's what they want. That's what they asked. It's what I believe. Yes, I agree. On balance, I have my doubts. Like, anyone who doesn't doubt the fact that Westpac, fucking the Business Council of Australia, all these bollocks, like, professional fucking consultant, NGOs, this, like, complex of the, think tank complex and network of fucking, Canva activism, and, like, thinking that, there was a lot of big money in the Yes campaign, and there was a lot of big money in the Right campaign, in the No campaign. Yes, of course. I'm not saying that there wasn't, but I'm also saying that there's a certain trend here. You got to, like, we've gone through this several times now, which is why these campaigns, which is that are losing, which is because it's what let me think. So you've got urban fucking like, well, they're not lefties, they're liberal, they're centrists, okay, passing off. Like, so you've got your teals and your greens, and you've got these urban centres where of professional middle class fucksticks who don't understand the electorate and don't understand the broader political climate in Australia. They have no fucking class consciousness whatsoever. They will, and they've made enemies of pretty much every ally that they may have had while calling everyone fucking, not good enough allies. It's like, well, okay, then what do you expect? Calling the electorate stupid, calling everyone, reducing everything down to one issue, racism, fucking whatever, sexism, fucking whatever the fuck. It's almost like when you use it's almost like when you use campaign slogans repeatedly while acting like a hypocrite and then screaming at people, insulting them, calling them stupid, having the fucking big four banks and all the consulting firms and all of this ESG bollocks after a pandemic where everyone who had issues with lockdowns was called a Nazi, that maybe when you're asking to change the Constitution, which should have happened, that maybe you fucked up the campaign with this rhetoric, and it's like maybe they don't trust you. Maybe they think there's a catch. It's never occurred to anyone that it's like it's a perfectly logical fucking thing. I'm not saying it was the right call, but it was all the misinformation. It was all the racism. It was all because people are stupid. And it's like, yeah, people are fucking stupid. But your job, when you sign up to being an activist or in a campaign, your job is sales. Your job, it's not someone's fault that they don't buy from you. It is your fault that you weren't able to reach them and sell. Okay? So take some personal responsibility. Learn from this. You won't. No one will, because this thought terminating bollocks, they'll just move on to the next fucking issue next week. And it will be like, well, everyone remember when everyone changed their black square stuff to a black square for a week and fucking, it's like, but at the end of the day, nothing changes. Mining companies still get to desecrate fucking, land. Mining companies and PwC and all those consulting firms who are largely more fucking responsible for wrecking like Aboriginal rights. So okay, now, let me see, there's lots of issues at once. Now, did Aboriginal communities overwhelmingly vote yes in favour of the voice? Yes, because it was the correct thing. They were asking for it. That was the correct vote, okay? But at the end of the day, a large portion of the people who live in those communities who were non-Indigenous voted no, and there is a very strong divide there, and there is a reason for that, okay, which is that it is not a vacuum and it's not just racism. Those people work on the fucking ground alongside Indigenous people all day. They see it. They live it. Okay, some fuckhead from Redfern who's built, who's like gentrified a fucking terrace house in like Surrey Hills, lecturing a fucking, mining, someone who lives in the wheat belt. It's like, get fucked with that shit. So now, referendums in Australia. I knew that, like, this is partially why I didn't say much. Partially why people like me didn't actually go full in on the campaign. First of all, because I knew it was going to lose. Okay, I knew it was going to lose because I know my history. Referendums in Australia, people vote no. Okay, you got that. That's a fact for lots and lots of different reasons. Now, let me quickly share this. I'm just fucking sick of people being horrible across the board. Now, referendums in Australia. Look it up. Here, there's a website. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a free Wikipedia. It's a free encyclopedia. All it requires is your eyes and your time, and you can actually access information rather than, mouthing off. I've seen people calling it like, this is Australia's nine. Seriously, get therapy. If you are sitting in a middle class life in the city, screaming that this is the end of the world, you need some therapy. You've lost it. Okay? Because the fact that you're surprised. Also, you need to just learn more about how our political system works. And screaming and insulting Australians, it's never worked. It makes them double down. That's a fact. That's an Australia. Well, it's not just a fact across the board. It's doubly a fact in this country, which is that we are anti-authority. We are egalitarian. We are suspicious. Okay, not loopy to the point of America where we cut our nose off to spite our face, but at the same time, we are very suspicious of authority. We are suspicious of the state, and we are especially suspicious of the federal government. There's a state and federal dynamic there that makes us doubly suspicious of the federal government power. And there's a historical reason for that, okay, which is that over time there has been a slow grab for power, okay, by the federal government and usurping the power of the states. So there is that aspect, okay? But then you've also got the fact that federally, over time, okay, in terms of the legal history, over time, that state autonomy, local governments, and those sorts of things have had a lot of their self-determination and a lot of their right, I suppose, and power. I don't like using the word power because it's not, but in terms of their what they're able to achieve and accomplish at the state level has been eroded by the federal government using Section 51 of the Constitution. I'm sure you've heard of it. I'm sure you're well versed in it, seeing as you're calling everyone names for voting against. I'm sure you know what Section 51 is, which is the external affairs power. Okay. Now, sorry, Section 51 is the so the Commonwealth has limited powers. Okay, and so using international basically, the way that it is set up is that through the courts, over time, there's this history of the Commonwealth using that sort of foreign affairs power to slowly take power away from the states, power away from local governments and that sort of stuff, and enforce more federal rule over those states. Okay. Now, whether you agree with that or not probably depends on whether you agree with the issue or not. Who cares? Okay. But basically, Australia is largely governed now in many ways by the UN because we just deferred it. We just basically ratify international law at this point. Okay. So you got to understand that part. So maybe America, you should look at your shit. Look at the role you have. Look at Europe. Look at the role you have in fucking undermining our autonomy before you go criticizing Australians for maybe voting against these sorts of things. Okay. Now, are there a portion of Australians who are racist? Yeah. Okay. Is there a portion of yes voters who are racist? Also, yes. Australia is people are racist, people are complex. That I've never denied that. But anyway, so let's look at referendums in Australia for 2 seconds, okay? I've even highlighted it for you. Okay? So a referendum. So in order to change the Constitution of Australia, you have to have a referendum. Okay? That is a compulsory vote. Okay, so it's not voluntary, it is compulsory, where every registered voter in Australia has to then vote on a single issue. Okay, now in order to do that, first you need to get it through the Houses of Parliament. I'm not going to bore you with that sort of process, but you have to have a referendum of every registered voter in this country for it to get up. Okay, now, so then we go down. So there's lots of fucking stuff. Now, so compulsory voting is a big part of it. Okay. Now, this is a fact of Australian political history. Now, there's lots of reasons for it. I'm not going to go into too many. I'm just going to express my frustration with people who are reducing these things down to, Australians being racist or fucking whatever. Let's just stop it. Okay? All it does is just show that you don't understand Australian politics if you say that, and you have no business doing political campaigning, because if you can't be asked to learn the system, learn about the people that you are trying to sell to because you are in sales, then you are actually probably hurting the movement more than you are helping. So there's that. So Australians, especially in rural, regional remote Australia, okay, they got a good bullshit test. Okay, now Can't talk about my family. You talking shit about my family, I'll fucking go for you. Okay? Stop calling people racist and stupid. I don't like it. So, Australians have rejected most proposals for constitutional amendments, approving only 8 of 45 referendums submitted to them since Federation, which was in 1901. Okay? So, in what? How many years is that? 200 fucking years? There's only been 8 that have passed. Okay? This is a fact. Noting the difficulty of the referendum process, the then Prime Minister Robert Menzies said in 1951, the truth of the matter is that to get an affirmative vote from the Australian people on a referendum proposal is one of the labours of Hercules. It is known. That is a fact. So if you went in thinking that it was going to be different, then you're an idiot. Because what happened, I think, here is that people don't know the difference between a plebiscite and a referendum. And they don't understand that people will quite happily vote on an idea that there's a plebiscite, but when it comes to changing the Constitution, it's not happening. It's just not happening. Okay. Without a really compelling case. Now, it's not, is it as simple, whoops, oh shit, I fucked up. Hang on. All right. So, this is just a fact. Okay. This is a fact of Australian politics. If you're not working from this baseline, okay, that Australians vote in favour of the status quo, and there are a multitude of reasons for that, and they keep telling you why, and you don't listen because you just scream at them about how they're stupid and racist, you'll find that more of them vote no to spite you. Okay, that is something that is funny about Australian fucking political culture that people don't understand. Okay, this was 10% of the population have a protest voters from the outset. Okay, this is something that is known. 10% of the Australian population will be at any election a protest vote against the fucking people, against the cunts that they don't like, against the mainstream or whatever. Okay, that's a known fact. One Nation, the Greens have benefited from this in the past, as have One Nation. Okay, that's a fact. Again, a fact of Australian politics. Okay, now. So apart from 1937, in which Victoria and Queensland were the only 2 states in favour, only these cases have followed a consistent pattern. A yes vote in the 2 most populous states, New South Wales and Victoria, and a no vote in most or all of the other states. Okay? Because they are the people, well, let's just say they're the professional middle class states of the country, and they have a tendency to think they're the centre of the country and the universe. Okay. Now, the result of the referendum was announced 2 hours, an hour and a half before Western Australia's polls had closed. Okay. Now that speaks to a broader attitude towards Western Australia, who also happen to be one of the wealthiest states. I think what we contribute, I think it's I haven't checked the numbers. It's either 17, 20, 18, it's around 17, 18% of the entire country's GDP comes from a handful of electorates in this country. All of them most of them in WA. Okay. Now, that's where native title, we've got 85% under native title. We've got a whole bunch of other issues. Okay. Now, guess where the Aboriginal people live? In Western Australia and Queensland, Northern Territory. Okay. Now, they voted yes. People who live alongside them voted no. Okay, now, there's lots of reasons for that, which I won't go into. But it's not racism, okay? It's no more racist than fucking Prue and Trude in Sydney voting about, pushing things with, a desecrated flag on their shirt, pushing people to vote for something out of paternalism. It's no less racist than that, okay? It's more complicated than that. I'm trying to be careful with my words. The reason why I'm stammering is because, obviously I think I want to make my intention clear, which is that, yes, of course, Australia is a racist country, but it's racist in a multitude of ways, which is that there's an awful lot of people speaking over fucking Aboriginal people, not for them. And the people that are closest to them voting no are somehow now being cast as racists or rednecks or fucking reactionary or whatever. It's like, well, no. Okay, there's a lot of people that were on the fence who, when it came to that moment, they voted no because they weren't sure about the details. Now, Why would people be suspicious of the details of things right now? I don't know. Oh, no, it's misinformation. Everything is misinformation. All of it. All of it is just misinformation. Now, who uses that? Who's been the victim of misinformation in the last few years? Okay. Now, yes, have a few gone off the deep end? Yes, it's very funny. Okay. But I don't know why people are shocked by this result. I saw it coming. Okay. Australians vote 45, what is it? 45, 55 in favour of no most of the time. Okay. In an electorate where the overwhelming majority of people support a republic, guess what? They voted no because they weren't sure about the details. That's, well, I don't know what to tell you. Calling people racist and stupid doesn't mean just because the Republican referendum didn't get up, doesn't mean that everyone suddenly loved the Queen either. Fuck me. Anyway, so a contributing factor to the predominance of the no vote comes from the unwillingness of the Australian voters to extend the powers of the federal government. Okay, now the reasons underneath that there may be a combination of reasons for that, but it is the main reason why referenda don't get up. Okay, and if you're detaching it from this history and this sentiment, which is that inertia is the biggest problem with referendums and that people will vote no when they don't know. That was an effective campaign slogan. It wasn't misinformation. It was a campaign slogan. That worked. Okay? It's like fucking then maybe do better than that then. You got Westpac's money and you got the Business Council of Australia's money. You can't say that they outspent you. Maybe fewer t-shirts, more fucking anyway. So, where are we? List of referendums and plebiscites. So now you need to understand the difference between a referendum and a plebiscite. So a referendum is a compulsory vote that is binding on the government and changes the constitution, okay? A plebiscite is something where it is a voluntary vote and also does not change the constitution, but it is something that is a matter of statute. So if the government wants to pass a law, like the most recent example is the gay marriage plebiscite, okay? It was non-binding. It was not going to it was not going to enshrine any changes in the constitution, but they thought this is a divisive enough issue, or not divisive, but it was something that we thought, okay, I mean, I don't think it should have gone to plebiscite anyway, but I'm just saying, like, some of that stuff is strategic, okay, which is that sometimes they will put these up knowing that the Australian public's going to fail. They will cynically put them up knowing that it will fail so that they can say they did it, but it was the will of the people. So there is a cynical political aspect to some of this stuff that needs to be unpacked as well, which is, should we have had the voice in the first place? Was it the right time for it? There's a lot to unpack there because, obviously we're off the back of a pandemic. We've got, people can't afford to live, especially like rural Australia at the moment. The cost of living is already a massive markup on, groceries and fuel and all those sorts of things, outside of the cities in Australia. They're doing it really tough. And again, it's not about whether it was, timing is a factor. Okay. And I'm just, people can get mad at me all they want for saying things like this. I really am past the point of caring because no matter what you say, you fucking get in trouble, and I'm just sick of this shit. It's like, things are either true or not true, and calling people racist actually just undermines everything, okay? It doesn't help. It doesn't achieve anything. It doesn't accomplish anything. It doesn't, I'm upset and disappointed too, and I thought I might be, it might be worth talking about this a little bit, mostly because I am someone who voted yes, and I supported the yes campaign, and I also knew it wasn't going to fucking work. Because I know the Australian electorate, and it was the worst timing. It was a terrible fucking timing. Okay, because when people are struggling financially, they do go into a mode of, us versus them. Why, and there is that common perception, and I'm saying it's a perception. You can't just say it's wrong and then ignore it and then demonize people. But there is a perception out there that, there's this thing, special rights or special privileges. Now, again, I'm not saying that's true. Okay, I would say that they are misinformed there. However, I'm sorry, but perception is reality. Perception is fact when you are dealing in sales. The perception of the person who is buying from you needs to be, it's like that's their objection. It's a no. Do you understand? Like, think about it in terms of sales, okay? It's either a yes where you've sold them, or it's a no, they're not buying from you. And there's lots of reasons why people won't buy. And some of it is that you're interrupting dinner and knocking on their door. You've talked yourself out of the fucking sale, like most of these dipshits online, okay? You've or they think you're trying to rip them off. You're not being forthcoming. They also don't, they might prefer to buy local than like buy from a multinational corporation who's telling them that this is a better product. There's lots and lots of reasons why people don't buy, and that applies to politics as well. And I think that reducing it down to something as simple as like being racist or being horrible and screaming at people is like bollocks. I'm sorry, but we need to, again, I've said this before, those people always exist, but they're extremely loud, and unfortunately they've got these big platforms where they don't have to, it's good to, an ABC TV presenter doesn't have to go to a rural and like a Western Australian wheat belt community and see anything, do they? They don't have to go there. In fact, they think it's icky. If you ask them, it's a bit icky to hang out with these people and talk to them and ask them about their lives. But they also happen to generate a anyway, it's whatever. So anyway, I'm mixing up my stuff. So list of referendums, all these racists who always vote, I mean, that one where the Commonwealth government wanted the power to market dried fruits, that was a particularly racist referendum, that one. Okay? How dare they be so horrible? Look. Yep. Look at that. It's just a sea of racism. That's all it is. And the only referendum where people have overwhelmingly voted in favour is the Aboriginal, is the 1967. Gee, what racist they are. Again, I'm not saying that people aren't racist. You get what I'm saying? I'm being hyperbolic to make a point. But look at this. Okay? People vote no. 45% average, give or take. It was already 45%. You're already on the losing side before you even begin. Okay? The second they start saying campaigning, anyone should have known that the second that you campaign on, if in doubt, vote no, they lost. Also, if you break down these numbers, you need complete unanimous support from both political parties. In order for a referendum to even have a shot. This is, anyway. But plebiscites, right? So the Australian marriage law. So a plebiscite is different. People will vote overwhelmingly in favour of a plebiscite because it's not binding on the Constitution because of all of these other things, okay? Remember that. So it's because the stakes are lower with a plebiscite because what they're doing is asking to pass a law, okay? So you just need to understand that part. Now, understanding Western Australia and the makeup of Western Australia. Now, are they racist? Yeah, probably a lot. But everyone is. Everyone's racist. Everyone does something racist. No one can win. No one is uniquely racist, okay? That's the thing. Some are more racist than others. Some are more honest about their racism. Some cloak their racism in Canva graphics. Let's put it that way, okay? It's not analysis. That is not serious political analysis. But what I do see is people who refuse to understand the makeup of Western Australia, which is that the polls closed and they announced the result while we were still about to vote. Okay, now there is a perception in Western Australia, rural Western Australia, that everything is dominated from the city, first of all. Okay, so I've spent a fair amount of time in rural Western Australia. And as soon as you sort of leave out of the city, it's a different world. It is a completely different world where even just the city, Perth, doesn't really adequately represent Western Australia. New South Wales and Victoria most definitely do not represent Australia, okay? Now, there is all of these tensions, right? So what it does is that what I find interesting about these results is that what I think a better way to look at it is that there's a whole bunch of people who feel very strongly about being left out. Okay, think about it that way. okay, which is that Western Australia. Now, you have to remember that Western Australia, that the plot of land that's being, like, accused of being fucking severely racist right now, okay, I'm just going to focus on the wheat belt and northwest, okay. Those parts of the state are quite unique in the fact that they are the people that are being called stupid, racist, ignorant, all of those things, right? They're responsible for the large bulk of the economy. Okay, so a large part of the the income and GDP of Australia comes out of Western Australia and Queensland. Okay, so you might want to think twice about calling the people who pay your bills racist for a start. Now, or stupid, because um, uh, that wasn't very nice. But like, Western Australia is very much the engine of Australia's economy. Now, Western Australia is ignored by the rest of the country most of the time, okay? Perth ignores the rest of the state, okay? So they are, minority within a minority within a minority within a minority, okay? Now, are Indigenous rights forgotten? Yes, okay? Now, has there been issues with mining? There's been a whole bunch. It's a mess. Native title and land rights and fucking all that stuff. Is that a mess? Yes. Okay. A lot of it is done informally. Okay. So a lot of it is done through the mediation process or conciliation and, all those sorts of things. There is already an enforced consultation process with the communities. A lot of people in Western Australia, I believe, have decided, because they had doubts about sort of, more federal power when they're already ignored by the fucking government. They can't even be bothered counting the vote. Can't even be bothered waiting till I vote before. Like, how is that? How is that not like representative of everything fucking wrong with the people in this country, where the ABC have already called the election when WA hasn't even voted yet? It's like that. It's just like, yeah, okay, cool. Well, it's good to know that, like, we're voting for you to have more power and say, seeing as you already decided what the election was going to be before I even voted. Like that, again, I'm saying how ordinary people who don't know stuff see things. It's fucking hot. It's 45 degrees all the fucking time. It's 50 degrees in the shade in summer. Fucking cyclones and fucking red dirt in every crevice in your body. Okay? You're sweating like a motherfucker. And you've got some city asshole lecturing you on fucking social media about how you're a racist when you were actually at the community meeting where, alongside the Indigenous people who were fucking negotiating with the mining companies to try and stop them destroying their fucking community, and they're like, you were there. But you are also there because, your livelihood is dependent on those mining companies. So they pay you, but you're also conflicted because you have an interest in fucking, because no one's fucking helping you either. Because it's fucking hot. Food costs a fortune. Fuel costs a fortune. Right? It's like, this is, it's 2 hours to the local fucking Woolworths. And it's like, okay, I'm not saying I'm not excusing it. I am saying that you don't fucking know what that life is like. Okay? And it's like, lecturing people who are in the communities, however they voted, is not fair. Okay? I wish that the yes vote had gotten up. I'm devastated for the local Aboriginal people who, overwhelmingly voted yes. I'm also upset with the accusation that those who voted no don't have a legitimate reason for voting no, which was the overall suspicion of the cities and the billionaires, and there's a valid case there. I went, I don't know about, again, I'm not fucking racist. Maybe I am. There's a lot of people that will just call me racist. Whatever. Do it. Go do you. I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm sick of this shit. Okay? Because I know how to win. You don't know how to win. When you can win the vote, well, you have upper hand, okay? Now, right now, you don't know how to fucking win a campaign to save your lives. Okay, so maybe listen to someone like me who's saying, okay, so in Western Australia, there is a massive class divide between, and also there's so you've got not only a class divide, okay, you've also got a rural and urban divide, okay. That rural and urban divide is severe, which is that there are a lot of people, well, Melbourne and Sydney people particularly, have never even been to fucking Perth, let alone like remote WA. But like unless you have been there for any length of time, you do not understand what life is like. It is extremely expensive. Okay, you're on your own. Okay, they work hard all day in the fucking heat. All right. Now, again, I'm not saying it's all, I'm not whatever the fuck woke criticism of fucking centering white people in it, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I'm saying to empathize and understand. If you can't take the time to understand why people vote no against the fucking against a constitutional change, of which people already overwhelmingly vote no anyway, the numbers are slightly more, aligned with, what was it? Slightly more aligned with, where are we? Parliamentary terms. Okay. How racist. People vote no a lot. All right. Start there. New South Wales and Victoria vote yes more than the rest of the country. Think about that. Okay. Now, urban votes, votes for centralised power more. Isn't it funny how it's always about the centralised power coming out of New South Wales and Victoria and urban people and billionaires and the fucking NGO fucking like people that are on the teat of social justice, but actually just the same bougie fucks that may as well be members of the Liberal Party because of the way that they fucking allocate resources. I don't give a fuck. It's just a convenient little prop. Anyway, I've probably burned some bridges. I'm just talking off the cuff, so I'm probably going to get, I don't know. I'm just actually fucking mad about this because like anyone who's worked in any political campaign in Western Australia knows that this wasn't going to happen. It was a non-starter. But also remember that like we have like there's a lot of like it's a delicate political situation. Okay, a lot of it is like a lot of it has to do with the severe imbalance between like mining companies, resource companies. Like we like if I can't, this town doesn't value me. Okay, because I'm not in mining. You got to understand that we are central around mining, consulting firms, like, billion-dollar, like, all of these sort of things. Like it's all about mining and fucking resources, resource extraction here. If you're even remotely outside of that, fucking, they don't know what to do with you in this state. Like I hate it here because I can't fucking find meaningful anything. Okay, let alone someone who doesn't have an education, doesn't have, whatever is like, yeah, it's like, it's unique. Western Australia has its own unique little thing, right? It's not racism. Okay, but also like the real root cause here is the imbalance between mining companies and Perth-based, capital, urban-based, and Melbourne and Sydney and international and all those sorts of things. Those power bases sort of dispossessing everyone. Okay, now, yes, Indigenous rights more important than white, right? I get it, right? But I'm saying on the ground, the perception is that they're all being fucking abused, displaced, exploited, overcharged, fucking, it's like, okay, they're not going to see it as they're going to see it as zero sum because they also see that those community meetings and those stakeholder meetings and all of those things where people from the city go up north once every few months, chair a meeting on behalf of the mining companies and negotiate them down for royalties and all that sort of shit. And they go, well, we're all in it together. Why are they trying to split? Why are they trying to like make it so that they get special rights? This is called active listening, where you repeat what people are trying to tell you in a way that makes them feel heard. Okay. And that is what people are saying. That is what they are feeling, which is why are you doing this now? Why now? Okay. The answer to the question is, of course, yes. But given who's interested in it, given who's bankrolling it, given who supports it, which is the fucking Teals and Labor and Greens and all those, professional class of fucking lefties who are counterproductive to every fucking social justice campaign that ever existed, ever. I'm going full fucking Luxembourg now. Fucking fuck these people. Seriously, they just don't listen. And then you've got, the COVID pandemic and then you've got obviously people's media diets is a big part of it, right? But, you've got Murdoch and Dutton and Hanson obviously exploiting that shit, which I'm not going to ignore, which is they should know better than to do that. But they're going to do that. That's what politics is. I don't know what you think. Is politics fucking loading something into Canva and thinking, well, I've done my part? It's like you'd be better off doing nothing. And do you know what? If there's political stuff going on in this country and I'm not talking about it, do you know why it is? Because you'll notice when I go quiet, I will not say something on purpose because I don't want to hurt the campaign that I agree with, which was for me. I didn't want to sow any doubt and support the no vote. I stayed quiet. I went, yes, I agree. I tried to appeal to people based on the perceptions that they had at the last minute and because I know how people feel. I didn't spend the last 3 months screaming at people into a fucking echo chamber, making it all about me. Okay? I wasn't going, we weren't going to change because the results went exactly the way that I thought, and I thought that the timing was wrong. After a pandemic where people are already hurt, we've got massive inflation, we have a massive amount of inequality. Now remember, don't forget, Centrelink, Robodebt, these things aren't in isolation from each other. Okay? Now remember how the average Australian interacts with Centrelink. Okay? What they see every day is I get fuck all to live and Aboriginal people get an extra payment. That's how they see things. I'm not saying it is the correct way to see things or the most fair way to see things. I'm saying it's how they see things. Okay? So it's a combination of different things. And it is not fucking racist to point out what is. Which is that there needs to be a better way of reaching and supporting people who feel dispossessed across the board, and that dispossession comes out in the voting. But for some reason, people refuse to fucking hear it. It just drives me up the fucking wall. Anyway, I don't care. Obviously, I'm a fucking whatever. Who gives a shit? It's not like I've been warning for like a decade that this is how things are going to go every fucking time. And it's like, oh, anyway, whatever. So I've just been ranting a bit. So, what was I going to, so, can't remember. But let's not forget, like, again, now I'm going to rant about the fucking US and UK, right? US, we're not you. Shut up. You don't know. Deal with your own shit, okay? The second that you can pass a fucking amendment to the Second Amendment of the Constitution to get rid of the fucking thing that causes mass shootings, maybe you can have an opinion. Till then, shut the fuck up. UK, you don't know us. We're a federation. You don't understand us. And a big part of our fucking history and the reason why a lot of people in Australia are skeptical of power and we push back against these things is because of you and your colonial bullshit where settlers and convicts and people, again, large group left out. Okay. I'm not, a lot of massacres and shit, but there's a whole history there of convicts and fucking convicts and slaves and fucking orphans from the UK and all those sorts of things who feel just as fucked over. Okay. Against their will. I'm saying it's not as simple as racism when you have to inject some, colonial, there's a whole, you have to put some class analysis into it, which is that there's a portion of Australians who come out of convicts, who were stuck in prisons, who fought back against that. Okay, they fought alongside the Aboriginal people. And I'm not saying they aren't different struggles. Don't misunderstand me. I am saying that it is, you can't, without doing this analysis and sitting with uncomfortable and unpopular thoughts that might be unpopular with the ladies at brunch who haven't seen a black face in a decade, okay, who take selfies of themselves fucking buying a big issue but do fuck all beyond that, okay? Without doing this kind of audit, you get nowhere. You don't win. You can't win. Which is you have to understand the pain of the people who you are trying to reach. Sales 101, experience mapping 101, user experience 101. Know your audience. Adjust your message to that audience. For fuck's sake, it's not hard. Okay? And all you're going to do, if you piss, okay, let's make it user experience. If you piss people off, guess where they're going to be? They're going to leave. They're going to disengage and they're going to not listen. And more importantly, they're going to continue not to listen. So the way that you conduct yourself on behalf of the ALP and the Greens right now is going to affect the next election. Okay, which is that what your average Australian has seen, who I've actually talked to people and asked them how they vote. I didn't know how they voted. I hold as many problems and things that we have had to face, and I'm on the right side here. Okay, I listen to people and I don't impose my I try not to impose my worldview onto people. I just listen to what they've got to say and adjust. And I know a lot of good, empathetic people who are on the right side politically, who are on the right side of every fucking issue, who voted no. And you know why they voted no? Because BHP wanted them to vote yes. And you know why they voted no? Because the fucking Business Council of Australia wanted them to vote yes. Okay, you know why they voted no? Because the bougie fucking Greens wanted them to vote yes, and they didn't trust it. Because the people who told them all of these other things for the last decade and called them racist and sexist and fucking bigots and fucking everything, okay, misrepresented every fucking thing they said as Nazis, okay, you burned your bridge. And so now things are actually important, and you've actually got someone wanting to have to actually read the wording of the question and vote yes or no. Of course they're going to err on the side of no, despite the gravity of the fact that they were going to vote no, because that's what fucking referendums are. But that aside, you're asking them a question, they don't trust it. They go, okay, well, you called me names for fucking 5 years. I don't trust you. Also, why is Westpac on board? Why are all those people that are calling me, like pressuring me? And again, that Australian spirit of like, if you fucking tell us what to do, the first thing that we want to do is tell you to fuck yourself. That's the Australian way. Okay, we're anti-authoritarian to our core. Okay, and that's why it's laughable to me when like dipshits from overseas say that Australian is authoritarian. It's like, no, we're not. We are self-interested, pluralist, clientelism, many things, but we're not authoritarian. We're legalistic and bureaucratic. Okay, but it's not authoritarian. It's like just lots and lots of admin. Okay. But that admin is quite protective. Those layers of checks and balances and scrutiny and interacting policies and laws and all those procedural things. There are people, even people who do know how those things work. Most don't, but even people who do, they go, okay, well, there's gaps here. Okay. Which is, again, like you have to understand how sort of native title works in this, like, anyway, that's a whole other fucking thing. But a lot of that stuff is an informal process anyway, okay? And that power imbalance. And I've been actually learning quite a bit about alternative dispute resolution, particularly mediation, and the role of mediation at ADR, okay? Which is that it is to avoid like legal disputes. Now, and one thing that ADR has in its sort of training and at the core of that, is that ADR is better at like dealing with and acknowledging power imbalances in a negotiation. So like in the case of like a native title thing, I'm wandering out of lane. I'm just sort of relaying what I learn, is that I'm not a native. I don't know a lot about native title. I know the basic political stuff. Okay. So, if I misspeak here, that's why. But, a lot of it is informal. There is a massive power imbalance between, corporate, between corporate lawyers from like, billion-dollar, mining companies and, and the government and like local Indigenous and non-Indigenous residents of those communities, right? And so, like the mediation and ADR is actually a big part of how native title happens and gets negotiated, because ADR is the best way for parties to have some sort of equalizing effect, right? I'm a big fan of alternative dispute resolution, like like I think it's a way much better way to go than this adversarial stuff in the courts, like you see a lot in the United States. Like like in the United States, he who has the most money wins in court. It's not necessarily terribly fair, right? So we try to avoid that as much as possible. So I can see why, even when you look at a more nuanced thing, again, this is people who don't know I'm talking about people who even just work on the ground and are sort of familiar with what they see in their community, okay, which is that, all right, well, this seems to be functioning sort of, okay. Now, I'm not saying it's functioning well. I'm not dismissing the large. Again, the thing that made me vote yes was, despite some of my sort of red flags with this thing, around the interests, okay, because again, there's this whole political history. Sorry, let me go back. The thing that made me, again, vote yes was that 80% of Indigenous people in our country were polled and said that they wanted it. 80% voted yes in rural, remote Australia. I said, okay, no problem. All right. Yeah, that's what at least I can do. That was the thing that sort of, and also looking at the fuckheads on the no side that were, doing dodgy, but it doesn't. We've got to really look at what making sure that we don't lose the actual substance behind this. And I'm sure that there'll be people that do that work. We're still waiting. You need to do like a post-mortem. And one thing that Labor does well, since the Shorten loss, okay, is that they tend to do post-mortems on these things. Now, Mark McGowan is actually one, our most, okay, Labor Premier, most popular Premier in history, most popular Labor government in history. They won off the back of doing listening and going on a listening tour and, those post-mortems. I've noticed that the Labor have gotten better since these sort of, losses where the polls don't necessarily indicate. Labor have gotten better at tapping into what people want, which is great, okay? So I imagine that there'll be a post-yes sort of, debrief and all that sort of stuff. And I imagine that all of the things I'm saying are true. Okay, because again, none of what I'm saying about like Western Australia is fucking false, which is that no one listens to fucking rural Western Australians. Okay, they listen to Aboriginal people less, but no one listens generally to anyone, okay? Despite them sort of being, harvested for fucking profit for mining companies. And, but so the little bit of power, so let's not forget the little bit of negotiating power that people do have and have sort of wrangled back through the courts and through the mediation process and all those sorts of things and through the land councils and, all that sort of stuff. People are going to be hesitant to give that up because, these fights are sort of, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back at all, all those sorts of things. So, but again, I can see why people voted no, because they weren't sure. And I think that at some point a campaigner has to take it on the chin and go, you know what, we misread this one. We need to go, if it was me, I'd be making every campaigner like, fuck me, everyone. Anyone who is on fucking, like, just aware of the fact that lefties calling people names and name calling just doesn't work, okay? It doesn't work. Call off your troll farms. Call off your harassment bots. It doesn't fucking work, okay? Do you know what makes people change their mind? Is a persuasive argument that acknowledges their pain, meets them where they are at, and someone who is willing to be a little uncomfortable and go, oh, okay, I see it from your point of view. What can I do to change your mind? Okay, how do we get to yes from here? That's sales. That's politics 101. That is activism 101. And this is why single issue activists hitting people over the fucking head, calling people names is bad activism. You're not good at, don't call yourself a political commentator if that's what you're going to do. Okay, now I'm hitting you over the head, so I'm a hypocrite. That's the point. I'm allowed to be a hypocrite because I'm giving good advice. But I'm just saying, this is my, politics is sales. At the end of the day, you are dealing in persuasion and sales. And if you don't understand that, okay, with your little quibbles about fucking this and this, like holding your fucking like Marxist theory book and all this bollocks, it's like you're in sales. Even Marx knew this. So why are you why are you using him is beyond me. The Marxism industrial fucking complex of bullshit fuckheads who miss the point of what he was trying to say the whole fucking time, which is that you're a dickhead. Quote me. That's exactly what he said. He said, yous are all a bunch of fucking idiots. No, I'm kidding. I'm riffing. I don't know what, I'm just going to regret saying this. But anyway, I'm going to go because it's been an hour. But like, I hope there was at least some fucking something in this. Because I'm so fed up with this, like, so fed up with these people. I'm just so fed up with it. And this is, but also why people like me don't bother engaging anymore with campaigns. Like I've been asked to help advise on campaigns for years, and I haven't done it in several years now because there's no point. They won't listen. I tried to give advice. I said, you need to fucking knock off this woke shit. It doesn't work. You need to knock it off. You need to pull those fucking idiots into line and tell them that, you know, if they behave this way, I've got an essay written about this. It's unacceptable. If you behave this way, that disqualifies you from pre-selection because you don't understand the electorate and you don't understand politics and we will lose the seat. It needs to, that kind of behavior of calling people names and name calling excludes you from being a candidate from our party. Okay? Because that is not how you win hearts and minds. If anything, you're hurting our fucking chances. Fuck off to the Greens. Go have a cry. Okay? That's not how you do things. But anyway, so that's me. I'm going to go. Hopefully I was coherent. I just made it up as I went along and I probably definitely 100,000% misspoke on this. But who cares? I'm right, as usual. In amongst this, there's wheat in the chaff, so to speak. Saying, wheat belt. I know my wheat. Anyway, I love you. Take care. Thanks for watching. I'll be back later in the week. All right. Be nice to each other and stop being a fuckwit. All right. Bye.